with it now off, you can see it in closer detail. There's a probe. It has the micro switch that you need to modify. You have a little safety pin you have to cut up. There's a screw there, that's a problem. I'll explain that to you in a minute. There's a plate for putting the other fan to tilt back. Now that's the original fan. As you can see, the fan wires do not hook into, normally they have a bit of a hook so the wires go in and stay there. These don't, and as you can already see, it's moving about, lifting off the label, and eventually they'll break. So a little bit of hot glue will do the job there. On the bottom bracket there, the clamping bracket, got the little arms. So this bottom bracket only goes on one way because of these arms. They actually sit below the surface there. So this arm can be mounted anywhere. This can be mounted in one or two positions, either there, well actually one. It can only be mounted there where it's clear. So this one's stopping one, this stopping the other one, so that's where it needs to be. But there's some problems. First of all, I'll take these bits apart and then explain it to you, but I'll just show you the problems here. Where the tube fits, you have the nut that you tighten up there, but these screws, you see one here, see the nut and the thread. If we go on the other side, you'll see that it's the head, and you see the other side, you'll see there's the head of the screw, but this end's got the nut. The reason for that is the actual length of the thread hits the nut, the tube nut. So when you go to tighten it up, it's actually pushing on there. So you'll never be able to undo that nut, and this would always be loose. So that's problem number one on that side. Problem number two is that if you have this head on this side, you cannot screw in that screw. So if you made an assembly, then you wanted to put it in, you can't screw it in because the head stops the head of that screw from hitting. So that's why that one's that way, that one's that way. They've curved the shape of that body, but the nut and the head sit on the curve, so they don't grip properly to tighten. So you can tighten them and they can be loose. That needs to be recessed with a hex to suit those nuts, like in the other parts you've seen earlier. So I will just mill counterbore in there and then just touch it with the hot soldering iron to just make a recess. Then I will cut those screws to the right length. So that's that problem in the assembly. So you could put all that together, come back and it doesn't fit. Other thing too is that I like to, like I said, tap these. So what I do is I hold those two together Run the tap through both pieces, make sure they're clamped, that's why the threads line up. Put one screw in, come to the other side, line it up, tap it, then clamp that plate together without the tubing. Then I push this together, tap that 3 in line, those 3 in line. So even though that doesn't have any nuts at the moment, it's tight. Very tight. So the nuts, even if they rattled off, it will still be held strong. So another problem, well, not so much a problem, is that people, when the air is blowing from here to here, it's also cooling down the hot end. So what people do is that they make up a shroud to cover it. So all you have to do is get yourself a sheet, an L-shaped sheet of aluminium, drill in 2 holes that size, so as it fits just in there and comes under there. So it would be just an L shape with a little hole cut out around there, and then that would allow the wind to blow and cover it. You could even use that Coca-Cola can from the early video. So that is that idea. And the idea of the other type of fan is that I would have ducting going down, and I would actually have a flap valve that would blow on there. Now, another thing to watch out for is your hot end. As you can see, it's not central, it's offset. So where the probe is cannot be on this side because it hits. When it's around that side, it's fairly close. So the probe needs sensibly to be on this shortest distance. So therefore, your assembly is going to have, say, the micro switch, the probe on the left hand side, and a narrow bit on the left hand side or the right hand side. So that then says, right, that determines where your cable comes out. Then you've decided whether you're going to have it coming on the right, the front or the back. So you then already started to work out the position of where it sits on the machine. So I'll now pull this apart and show you the problems and the fixes as we go along.